Okay, I think we're recording now. Hello, everyone. I am excited and honored today to have three fellow booktubers with me, and we are going to be talking about our top 5 fantasy reads. So this is going to include maybe a series or standalones, but these are our top 5 at the moment fantasy reads. And I want to introduce my colleagues here. And we have Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative.
Hello.
And we have Sun from Sun and Mood Reads.
Hello.
And we have Joanna.
Hey.
And I want, actually, if you three don't mind, I'd love it if you would just say a little bit about your channels and what you do there. And I'm going to tell everybody that, of course, I'm going to have your channels in the description below, links to them, so that everybody can go check out your channels. And I highly recommend everyone that you subscribe to these three. They are smart and fun, and I really enjoy watching their videos. So Leslie, can we start with you and just tell us a little bit about your channel?
Sure. I have a little channel called The Nerdy Narrative. And when I first started, it was science fiction and fantasy, but through the love of all of the wonderful bookish community and people I have met, I have expanded my reading horizons, and it now includes tons of more genres, and I'm exploring new ones all of the time and having a fantastic time doing it.
Cool. And I know you read manga too, right? That's one of the...
I do. And I'm about to enter the world of American comics very soon.
Oh, nice.
So I'm excited.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. How about you, Sun?
Hello, I'm Sun. G'day from down under. So yeah, I have a channel called Sun and Mood Reads. I'm relatively new, I guess. I started in, I think it was August, September last year. And basically one of those lockdown, birth of a booktube channel, just out of boredom and wanting to stay creative and wanting to connect with other people. Relatively new, a bit of everything. I kind of cover all genres, and reading fantasy actually is quite a new journey for me. I started reading about 3 years ago now, so it's all very new and exciting.
Cool.
How lucky.
Yeah, lots to discover.
Yes, so much to learn, so much to read.
Oh, but you get to read it all for the first time, and we get to take part in that journey. So
yeah,
that's right. Yes.
that's BookTube. And Joanna, tell us a little bit about your channel, please.
Okay, hi, my name is Joanna, and I just started my channel actually at the beginning of this year, and it kind of started as a joke. It's a weird story. I just found that I was constantly watching BookTube and started becoming more interactive in the BookTube community at, I guess as far as back as last summer. And one day I just found I had 2 subscribers on my YouTube channel, even though I didn't have any content. So I just made a joke with some friends in the book community on the Discord that if I got to the milestone of 5 subscribers, I would do a Q&A video, which is a big joke because most people don't do that until they get to like 500 or 1,000 subscribers. So a few people subscribed to me and I got to like 13 or something. So I went ahead and did a Q&A video, and then I got some encouragement to continue. So I decided to continue, and I've been having so much fun with it. So yeah, I mostly read fantasy. I do love sci-fi as well. But I feel like I'm still kind of early on in my fantasy journey because I've gone through many periods of my life where I've gotten into fantasy and then just stopped reading for fun for many years and then come back to it. So it's an interesting journey.
Well, we're glad you started it. So, and I also just realized that there's, I didn't plan this, but there is a musical connection here. So all of you remind me of music in one way or another. Joanna, you're a professional, professionally trained, I think, right? And Sun, you also are, I believe, professionally trained. You certainly sound it.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I didn't know that Joanna was in the musical field.
Yeah, my degrees are in music, and I teach music.
Amazing!
I'm not performing anymore, really, but I'm teaching. But yeah,
wonderful.
And Leslie, Leslie sang for us for the entire, was it December? It was basically
December,
yeah. It was so much fun. Leslie sang the introduction to her channel. You have to go back and watch some of those introductions.
I'm sorry.
So, you know what? You don't want to hear me sing, and I won't sing. I did whistle on one video.
Oh, I was hoping.
You whistled very well, by the way, Philip.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just so lovely to have the three of you, and I feel very fortunate to be in a chat with you, and we'll definitely have to do this again. But so let's start then, and we will begin. So just quickly laying out the rules here. We each have brought 5 titles to this conversation, and we don't know each other's picks yet. So there probably will be some overlap. I would be surprised if there were not. And so we're going to each kind of go one at a time and name one of these are not ranked. So these are unranked top 5 favorite fantasy stories. And again, they can include series or standalones. And so if one person names a story that I have on my list, then I'm also going to chime in then. So let's begin. Sun, would you like to start us off, please?
Oh, you're making the fantasy novice go first, Philip.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to you, Philip, for organizing this and for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here to discuss fantasy stories with you all. I just can't believe you guys are real as well. I can't believe I'm actually
we're real.
Chatting to you back and forth in real virtual life. It's pretty exciting. So like I said, I am a bit of a fantasy beginner, and the books, I guess, that I want to mention today are the ones that got me into reading fantasy, really. I've got a small basket full of, fantasy goodies, but it's a good basket. So the one I guess I wanted to start off with, and I have a feeling someone might have it on this on your list, but the Broken Earth Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. Anyone?
Oh, yes, that's on my list.
Oh,
No,
ding, ding, ding,
not,
ding, ding.
not
Not
yet.
a good game.
I'm going to read that this year, though.
So believe it or not, the first book, the 5th season, was the very first fantasy book that I ever read. And I think, before that, like 10 years before that, was Harry Potter, and that was it. So this is the one that, yes, got me into fantasy reading and made me think, oh, wow, fantasy stories can be like this. This is amazing. I'm totally in. And so I think, there are so many reasons why the Broken Earth trilogy is up there as one of my top favorite fantasy reads. But yes, the magic system, the world building is just insane and so unique. Unlike anything that I've ever read or anything that I ever thought my brain could imagine. And that was what was so exciting for me as a first-time reader in fantasy, just thinking, wow, to be able to just conjure up these amazing worlds and magic systems and these such vivid characters going through these out of this world experiences. It was just an epiphany for me, really, to read these stories. And the characters are so vivid and raw and flawed, and just you really learn to understand them. But I guess above all else, it really was Jemisin's writing and how just the social commentary, just about how she just draws the parallel from, the fantasy stillness world of Broken Earth to our world and our world's history of oppression and, slavery, and basically how humans just mistreat other humans due to feeling threatened, and humans just taking from Earth, like all that commentary. Like, I was able to not only identify it, but it went beyond that for me. I was really, really affected personally by it. It made a huge impact on me. Usually when I come out of a good reading experience, I kind of take a breath and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. And I reflect, and then most of the time I move on. But with Broken Earth, I came out of the read and I was like, right, what can I do? What can I do as a human being to better myself, to help others, help Earth? What can I do? Let's go. So my response to the Broken Earth trilogy was quite active rather than reflective, if that makes sense. story has just huge impact on me.
Yeah. So I'm going to chime
Let
in
me just
because
move
it's on.
that up the TBR.
Oh.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. I'm going to chime in a little because it's on my list too. So that's one of my 5 picks as well. And just what Sun said and said so well. Honestly, I can't add too much. Just the incorporation of the themes of oppression, but also resilience. Just beautiful story. And also something I really admire is the risk that Jemisin, N.K. Jemisin is the author's name, that she took with the narrative perspective. It is unlike anything else. There's the second person narration at times that it won't totally make sense until you finish the trilogy. And I won't say anything more than that, but I was just, my jaw was, hanging near the floor in admiration for when I realized what she was doing. And it's just brilliant. And by the way, she's the only author ever to win the Hugo Award 3 years in a row. So there's something there, and to me it was well earned. So
absolutely, it was absolutely deserving. Yes.
Yeah. So let's move on to Leslie. How about one of your 5?
Okay, so I had to go with the book that got me into fantasy in the 90s when I first discovered the genre, really. And that is the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. I know he is a controversial author, but back when I was a teenager and reading his books, we didn't have Twitter and all of the avenues to see what kind of people the authors behind these books were. So I didn't know any of that. And that's not going to, after reading these books for all of these decades over and over again, it just, at that point, it's very easy for me to keep him separated because my love for this series is just such that I just can't disconnect my soul from it. But the Sword of Truth series is a very interesting fantasy in that we start with this world full of magic. Well, no, I don't want to tell y'all because if you've not read it, but I will tell you this. There is usually not a whole lot of what I would call romance in fantasy. And I'm not saying that there's romance, lovey-dovey, any of that kind of thing, but there is a love that starts in the first book and throughout every book in the series. Richard and Kaylin have the absolute best love story I have ever read. It's pure, it's honest. There's none of that garbage where there's a love triangle or there's miscommunication. None of that. And I just loved it. I mean, these two just loved each other. They never changed. The characters, when you meet all of these characters, the characters don't change. There's not this arc where they start this way and then 20 books later they end up this way. I really appreciated that the character was the same person throughout, and the story was so great that built around them that it was okay. The plot was so good, so intriguing that it was okay that your characters weren't doing any of these crazy arcs. I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved there's so many interesting aspects and elements that I've not seen in any other fantasy series. I know Goodkind has been accused of plagiarism. I haven't looked into it. I just recently heard that. But I can also tell you, if it is plagiarized, I can tell you there's a lot of stuff in here I've never seen anywhere else. And it's just done so well. I just absolutely love this series, and I'm contemplating another reread.
Great. Yeah. I read Wizard's First Rule. That's the first book, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I liked it. I really did. It was a while ago, so I'd have to reread it. But yeah, great. Fantastic. Let's move on to Joanna. What's one of your top 5 fantasy reads?
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with A Song of Ice and Fire because I read that. I mean, well, it's not a completed series, as we know, but I started reading that, I guess, about 8 years ago. And at the time, I was very intimidated by it because I had a lot of friends who I consider very, very smart who were into that series. And that was before the show came out. It was like right before the show started. And I thought I wanted to get in on this. The way they described it to me was something like these battling kingdoms, but then over here, there are zombies. So that sold me. I thought, okay, that sounds interesting. And dragons, fighting kingdoms, and zombies. And that's actually a pretty easy description for a series. I mean, if you try to describe Stormlight and Malazan, you can't quite do it that way. But anyway, I started reading Game of Thrones, and I was shocked because I just thought I wouldn't get in. I thought it would take me a long time to get into it. And I thought, this is going to take me so many years to read these 5 books. They're so big. By the time I finish, Martin will probably have written the 6th book. But I was just, I wish, but no, I binged those books. I could not stop reading them. And I just remember rushing to the bookstore to get the next book, or rushing to the library to get the next book. I couldn't wait to get home from work just to read them. And when you think of good fantasy, you're thinking of good world building. You're thinking of an amazing cast of characters. And you're thinking of magic, of course, and dragons. And you get all of that in A Song of Ice and Fire. You get so many. I mean, I think that was a series that sold me on multiple perspectives, like multiple POVs, because I just love, I got attached to every single character. And it was like a range of characters, like of many different ages. And I don't think there was a single setting in Westeros or in that world that I didn't love or that I wasn't fascinated by. And I also loved that the magic didn't really quite help the characters. There were still stakes. So I loved those books. I love that series. I know most people tend to love Storm of Swords, the 3rd book, and not care as much for the 4th and 5th book, but I loved all 5. I did too. Yeah.
Yep. Does anyone else have this on their top 5?
It had to get booted in favor of others.
Okay. All right. That's a great choice, though, really. So fantastic. I guess it's my turn. And this will be a real shock to you 3, but I'm going to throw out the Malazan Book of the Fallen. As one of my,
what?
Yeah. And the thing is, it wasn't a year ago. I loved it the first time I read it, but I felt like I had immense respect for the series up here, but I had to work so hard to get it up here that I wasn't experiencing it here the way I wanted to. And now that I'm doing my reread of the series, reading it the second time, man, I am so immersed, and I have so much respect for this series. And it is one of the most incredible journeys I've been on. You know, it's hard to describe, because when I started reading fantasy as a kid, it was Tolkien that brought me into this world. And I had never really experienced this sense of awe to the same degree until this reread with the Malazan Book of the Fallen.
Well, speaking of unfinished series, Joanna, my next pick is the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. So I read this last year. So early last year, I started the journey, and I have no idea. I must have been living on Mars, or I don't know, but I actually didn't know much about this series at all. I just went into it like just cold turkey, and I was just absolutely swept away in the storytelling. It just is masterful storytelling, and it kind of has to be, because it's a story about stories, you know, it's story within a story, and then it's absolutely epic. And this is probably the fantasy reading experience that I was the most excited and the most entertained. It just had a bit of everything, and I just love Rothfuss's writing. Obviously, it's very beautiful, his prose, but I just love how he just switches from tone to tone. Like, you know, you have that epic fantasy element, but you also have that really inner dark world struggles of Quoth. And you also then it switches to kind of quite humorous, you know, almost Princess Bride kind of moments that make you laugh out loud. And But then you also have very trippy moments that are just so absurdist almost, but you just kind of go along on that roller coaster journey that is the Kingkiller Chronicles. And I think I watched one of your videos, Leslie, when you were actually talking about the Malazan, like you read the first book, I think it was Gardens of the Moon, and you said something, and I did write it down, you said something, and you said about how the story was like a tapestry where you were watching this tapestry in action and you were like, oh, where's this thread going? Where's this thread going? But then eventually you saw this tapestry form this kind of work of art. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that's what you said. Yeah. And that's how I feel about the Kingkiller Chronicles. I feel like it's an artistic masterpiece for me. There were moments where, yes, I was completely immersed in the story, but then from time to time, I was able to kind of step out and go, wow, this is just an amazing work of art, amazing storytelling. I'm just in absolute awe of this story. So yeah, and you can tell I'm a little bit in love with this series, although it's not finished. And I feel like I'm that teenager who's fallen newly in love with the boy that everyone knows is never going to commit, you know. that's Patrick Rothfuss with that last book, you know. But I'm still committed. I'm still having faith that it's going to come out.
So the one fantasy series I'm sure everyone that knows me has been waiting on me to pick, that is The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. And included in that is the Of Blood and Bone trilogy, because it all takes place in the Blasted Lands. John Gwynne knows how to write a character, and I am such a character-driven reader. And he just has this art of I fall in love with every character, even there's like 3 bad ones that I will 4 that I'll never like, but everybody else, good, bad, gray. I mean, I was rooting for every character. I wanted every character to be the hero of this story. Oh my gosh, I have never been so heart-wrenchingly just broken up over a series. I was crying so bad at one point during The Faithful and the Fallen that my husband got mad at John Gwynne. He's like, don't buy any more of his books. Don't support him. Don't read anymore. He said, you're done. You're done. And I was like, well, no.
How dare he hurt my wife?
I was like, well, I need to read the next one, though. I need to see what happens. And even when I finished those books, I never left that world. I have at least 10 people right now reading the series that send me DMs, and I relive that first journey through the Blasted Lands every time. And it just picks right back up in Of Blood and Bone. And I thought I was going to be upset because it wasn't the same cast of characters, but no, true to form, John Gwynne has me in love with the new set. And I'm just, man, it's a series like that, it's just unmatched. I don't know that I'll ever feel that way about another series with those characters from Of Faithful and the Fallen.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm actually reading Ruin next week. I'll probably be like you were.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, I actually talked to John Gwynne in that particular book, and he's like, I'm sorry, smiley face.
Oh dear.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, well, I have a feeling I know what I'm in for, so I will have my handkerchief handy. So
best advice I can give you, go straight into Wrath.
Okay.
Just go straight into it.
I'll go as soon as I can. I'm sure I'll want to anyway. So
yeah.
Okay, Joanna, what's next for you?
Well, actually, I share your answer. I'm going to say Malazan, and I know that doesn't sound earned yet because I'm not finished with the series, and I just finished the 4th book. This is my first read through the series, but I can't help it. I have to say Malazan. And these books have already had such an impact on me. I am still not over House of Chains. Like I am still tearing up over that book, and I finished it a couple of weeks ago. And I don't think I can't think of any other series that has had an impact on me quite like Malazan has, because when I read those books, it's almost like, Philip, you will understand probably, and actually Leslie too, but once you come out of one of those books, it's almost like disorienting. I feel like I'm almost in a state that I have to come out of. It's very strange, but there
Yeah.
is something just so powerful about the way that Stephen Erikson writes. And he's one of those authors that I know they always say he shows, don't tell, show, don't tell, and that's his way of writing. But seriously, I think that he does such an amazing job of showing you these characters and their backgrounds and giving you enough information where you can kind of understand where they're coming from, but he never tells you how to feel about them. You sort of arrive at that through reflection and through really sitting with it. And I find the more I reflect on parts that I've read of this series, just the more deep and emotional and complex it becomes for me. And actually today I was listening to a video from Brittany from Books with Brittany, and she was saying her experience reading these books has become much more enriching through the community, through talking with others and discussion with others. And I have to give you credit, Philip, because your discussions on your channel have just, and I know, I know I'm not the only one. Many have said this, like, especially your discussions with AP, they have just taken this series to a whole new level of just, again, deep contemplation and reflection. And yeah, there's no way I cannot say Malazan at this point, and I am sold. Like at this point, I am prioritizing that series above all other series right now. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be reading books in between as I go through, but it's definitely high priority for me right now.
Yeah, I'm actually a little envious of you because I didn't have any community at all. I was totally on my own, didn't know anything about Malazan when I read it the first time. So, and I keep thinking, wow, if I had been part of BookTube back then, this would have been a different experience. So yeah.
Y'all made it easy for me because I watched everything that y'all put out that was spoiler free.
Yep.
And so when I went into it, I knew, okay, this is a book I have to be present for and I have to pay attention. And so I took it slow and I read one chapter a day. Even though I was really excited and wanted to read more, I read one chapter a day and just digested it. And it paid off. The payoff for just being present when I read that book was just absolutely fantastic. And I would have never known to really take that approach if y'all hadn't just had such great patient videos that it kind of just gave me an overview of what to expect. So
100%.
If you've ever wondered if those types of videos are worth putting out there, they are.
Oh, yes. You, Philip, you are changing people's lives with those videos. You really, really are. So you are giving people that experience. I can speak for myself, but many others who've said the same. And I mean, yes, thanks to BookTube, because I don't know. I was pretty sure I was going to continue, but I kept getting distracted by other books and I wasn't sure about how I felt about Dead House Gates. But I have to thank Andy Smith because big thanks to his video on like postmodernism and post-structuralism in Malazan, it really helped me understand the different approach that Erikson was taking with the series.
Yeah.
And so it's like the power of BookTube. It's really amazing.
Yeah, that's a great video. It really is. Yeah. So wonderful. Well,
I gotta read Malazan. Look what I wrote on my note.
Yeah.
In a year, if we do this again in a year, Malazan may be on mine, but I've only read one, so I haven't let it usurp anyone, but I do predict that it's going to.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Well, cool. Okay. Well, I think we're back to Sun now.
Oh,
I think we're back to you, Philip.
Oh, yes, you're right. I forgot me. Although I have said two already because I did throw in Broken Earth, but I'll say one. I already mentioned Lord of the Rings. And that is always going to be among my very favorites. There's just a huge nostalgia factor there for me. There it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, it opened the door to me, as I said, to fantasy, and I have never turned back. I've been wandering all the hills and dales of Middle Earth ever since. And there's just a sense of beauty in those books that I so love being immersed in. And yes, there's loss and there's pain, but always in Lord of the Rings, I feel like it's the beauty that prevails at the end of it. And it is something that I've always wanted to kind of replicate that experience of the first time reading Lord of the Rings, and as I said, I hadn't been able to. I've come across many series that I've loved. Nothing else has done it until the Malazan Book of the Fallen very recently. So you can see what an impact the Lord of the Rings had on me. So yeah, just a definitely a favorite, always will be. And I will probably read it more times than I can even tell you. I mean, I used to read it every year. I can't do that now because I'm reading all this other stuff for BookTube, but I'll get back to it again and maybe do some more videos on it even. So yeah. Does anyone else have that as a pick?
Yeah, I specifically chose The Two Towers, but I can honestly say that I think even The Hobbit is what got me really into reading fantasy. I was already kind of immersed in fantasy culture when I was a teen because I hung out with a bunch of like D&D players and LARPers and people like that. But my best friend at the time lent me The Hobbit, and I just loved it right away. I think like my greatest memory though was reading The Two Towers. For some reason, I just remember, I don't know, just being really, really immersed in the story, just that sense of wonder. And I don't know, I remember having this moment when I was a teen, just like looking through this book and like loving the story, but then just picking a sentence or something and just being in awe and admiration of the way that Tolkien writes. I always say I'm not really very analytical of a writer. Of a reader, and I don't really think about prose very much, but there was something about his prose that I thought was stunning to me, even as a teen.
Yeah.
I just could tell it was beautifully written. And I think that that really influenced me later on in life because when I started getting into wanting to learn how to write better, I've never been a natural writer, but my mother is. My mother was, she has her degree in English, and she sat down and taught me how to write one day. And I was so amazed with how beautifully she wrote. And I think it just that really started with me reading Tolkien. So yeah, on my list.
Wonderful.
Though I have to admit, I never finished it. I never finished Return of the King. And I'm going to start rereading this series actually next month.
Oh, good. Yeah. Awesome. I hope to see some videos on it then.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So back to Sun then.
Okay, back to me. All right. So speaking of crying in a series, this is probably the most emotional that I've been in a fantasy read, and it is the Farsia Trilogy by Robin Hobb. I don't know whether I should have put it in or not because I'm just about to finish book 2, Royal Assassin, and about to go into 3. I just slowed myself down a bit. I'm on the last few chapters of book 2, and oh my god!
Oh no, yeah, that's rough. Yeah,
he's just so good at reaching into your chest, grabbing your heart, taking it out, going, "You won't need this."
But then she'll repair your heart just to break it again.
Yeah.
Yes. I just absolutely majestic, emotional ride. And really the most invested I've been in characters. Every single character, you really go through their inner world, their inner struggles. It's just beautiful. And I had a very random thought about this series. I thought, like, if my mum ever read this series, my mum is very into, she's Korean, she's into the yin and yang kind of energies, and she would say, oh, this story is very yin. It's very yin. It's very emotional. It's all kind of, it's all about, the psychology, about thoughts, about emotions, even the magic system itself. It's all in here. It's all about, reading people's minds and empathizing with animals. And my God, when animals are involved, I'm gone. I'm hopeless.
Yep.
So I haven't finished this, but I'm just so excited about this whole Realm of the Elderlings series, because it's just, I can see that it's just, as each book goes on, it's just going to expand and expand and expand. And I am just so thrilled and like honored to be going on this ride.
Yeah. I also have the Realm of the Elderlings among my top 5. And Leslie, you too. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll
jealous. I'm starting Robin Hobb this year. I can't wait.
yes, and I predict, Joanna, it is going to be on your top 5. So
Yes, definitely.
I'll just let Leslie talk, but I'll briefly say that I don't know of any writer with the psychological depth in her characters the way Robin Hobb has. And
never come across another one like her.
yeah, and I love Night Eyes too. Yeah. So Leslie, why is the Realm of the Elderlings among your favorites?
So when I started Farsia, we were not friends, Robin Hobb and I. We were not friends. That is the only book I can remember that I have thrown in anger. And I only threw it because I bought a used copy like for $2. If it had been new or anything like that, I wouldn't have done it. But it was in terrible condition. It stunk. And I launched it down the hall, and my husband kind of tiptoes and looks around in the door, and he's like, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "I need to read the last 150 pages. Will you grab that?" But her prose is absolutely gorgeous. It's just, she came out with Robert Jordan, Terry Goodkind, George R.R. Martin, but she did it better. She had the beautiful prose without the 30-page long descriptions of the trees in the forest or the color of a dress. She perfected it. But my goodness, she rips your heart out and she takes your soul. But my word, while you can feel that much grief, you also can feel that much joy. So, but she didn't get me as a favorite with Farsia. She got me with a favorite with the live ship traders and
Same
Ship
here.
of Magic.
Yep.
Yeah,
Holy smokes. I mean, that she is at the table. Nobody's ever going to usurp her from the top table of fantasy for me, ever. This is just not going to happen.
Yep.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, unlike you, Leslie, I read Farsia and she was already probably like top 15 for me. And then I read Live Ship Traders and she's top 5 now. Yeah.
I mean, gosh, what she did with that world, and it just kept building, and I didn't know where any of it was going. And there were so many elements that were introduced and the things that she did with them. Oh my gosh. I just want to tell you all about it so bad. Yeah. So I'm going to need you guys to get through the Realm of the Elderlings pretty quickly. We can talk about it.
All right. So I think it's Joanna's turn now, right? Is that right?
Is it my turn?
Well, well, I agreed with Sun.
Oh, yeah. So it's actually your turn then, Leslie.
That makes sense.
Okay. So I wore my shirt for my next series, and that is going to be Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson.
Nice.
That one took me by storm, you could say. Oh my gosh. His style of writing is a lot simpler. He basically holds your hand through this story, but it may be on the simpler side of fantasy, but he inspires me. His characters inspire me to be a better person. His writing just gives me faith in humanity. And when I get to, they're all 1,000-page books, but when I get to the end, every page is worth it. I immediately want to reread it just to have that buildup of what's going to happen at the end. Just the chills and just the heart just full of, oh my gosh, I want to do all the things. I want to be this kind of person, and I want to overcome, and I want to inspire other people the way that Sanderson's characters do in this series. And that they're, completely different feeling than what Hobb gives me or what Gwynne gives me, but just as good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I love what Sanderson has done for the genre. He's brought a lot of readers into the genre.
He did.
Which is a great thing. And I have to agree with you to the extent that I think Stormlight Archive has And he takes some knocks for his character work, but honestly, I think he's done a great job in the Stormlight archive with the character work. In particular, I think he deserves recognition for what he's done in terms of portraying people with disabilities and people who have depression and other.
Yes.
I have to take my hat off to him for that. I think he's done some really good stuff there. So yeah, great choice.
They're just so relatable. So relatable. There is somebody in there that anybody picking it up, I feel, can relate to it.
Yep, great choice. Okay, now I think we're on to yes.
Well, that's perfect because I think I'm going with that as well.
All right.
Way of Kings was one of my top books of 2020. I just had so much fun. They're just fun books. They really, really are. It was funny because my husband read Way of Kings before I did, and he's a very introverted, stoic person. So he read it and he just never smiled or never did anything. And I said, "Did you like it?" He's like, "Yeah, I liked it. It was okay." He wasn't crazy about Sanderson's writing style as much, but he was like, "Yeah, it was good. I liked it." And then I read it and I was like laughing and hollering and just very loud. So I had a great time with those books. I particularly liked Way of Kings. I'm not sure if this will be on my top list by the end of the year, but I did. I had a great time. And I especially loved Rhythm of War. I buddy read that with my friend Gregory LaPerche, who is great with conspiracy theories. So he was coming up with conspiracy theories, and those books are just perfect for that kind of thing. Cool. So it's a fun series to theorize with people. And yeah, it's just it's fun. I liked it.
Yeah, I think the fans really like the whole Cosmere thing where there are references to other series in his universe, right? I mean,
that's right. I get lost with all of that, but
yeah, I started with these, so I didn't know about all of the other tie-ins except for Warbreaker. So I'm trying to start at the beginning now, and me and Elantris are not getting along. It is not going on the list.
Oh no.
The only thing I've read by Sanderson is the Mistborn trilogy, the original trilogy, and I like that too. Yeah, it's a good trilogy as well. So, all right, I don't know where we are now. I think it might be me. Is that right?
Let's go with it.
Okay, and then we'll go back to Sun. So I only have one left because you guys have mentioned, or I have mentioned all of my picks so far. So my last one in my top 5 is the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I'm reading that one now.
Awesome. Yeah. And I just love his humor. I think he's one of the best character writers out there. Just brilliant character work. And I think he keeps getting better and better with each book. My favorite books are, the latest trilogy is not finished yet. The third book in the what's the new trilogy called? A Little Hatred was the first book, and then I'm blanking here. But anyway,
Lesser Cold or
that's one of the
Cold. No, that's
the First Law World or
Age of Madness. Of Madness trilogy. There it is. So that's his latest trilogy, and I just think I love that trilogy because it's got the same. He's really good at action. He does action brilliantly, and in all sorts of contexts too, not just battles, but he'll go from one POV to another in the really intense scenes, and it's just really effective. So just lots of love from me for Mr. Abercrombie's work, and I think he just keeps getting better and better. And I think, Joanna, you also said yes. All right.
That's also one of mine too. And I know I feel like this is so not earned too, because I'm only I'm currently reading Last Argument of Kings right now.
Oh, nice.
And I'm so happy to be back in this world. Oh my goodness. But yes, before they are hanged, I was saying that it sounded almost like a joke when I was saying it in a video, but I was serious. I really do think that book might have changed me as a reader. I love the way Joe Abercrombie writes. I love his humor. He will just make you laugh. The way he builds his characters up and knocks them down, it's so funny the way he executes that.
I have laughed the whole way through the first book. I've got like less than 100 pages left in it. I'm going to finish after we get done, but I have just laughed the whole way through.
And keep in mind, it's supposed to be grimdark, which is...
I know. I feel bad about laughing, but I can't help it.
Yeah.
I mean, I try not to, but I'm sitting there smiling like a fool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the best grimdark is when he brings in the humor. Yeah.
I think he's on his way to being one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
Wow.
Love his writing style.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm done. As my 5 are out there. Joanna, your 5 are out there. So Sun definitely needs to be next because we've only heard from three of yours so far.
Oh, yes,
So,
yes. All right.
your-
Okay, so the next book is actually, it's kind of crosses a few genres. So I would say it's like a soft contemporary fantasy. But the reason I wanted to include this is just because it's just my favorite read of 2020, and I just absolutely love it. And I feel like it's a book that kind of is quite attainable for not just fantasy readers, but all readers. And it is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So this is, like I said, it's a soft fantasy with maybe a slash of romance. But it's the best way I can describe it is it's if X-Men was an endearing comedy story, and so it's basically about a world like ours where there's, you've got the normal humans, the muggles, but then you've got like a race of people and kids that are growing up with these special magical abilities. And so they set up these orphanages where they house these children. And so there is that social commentary of them being ostracized, but it's just so endearing. The characters are just so wonderful. There is a beautiful commentary on just society and how, just we do ostracize people, and there's a wonderful queer representation in the romance as well. And I don't know, this one just gave me the warm and fuzzies, and the fantasy element has a sense of familiarity. It's kind of reminds me a little bit of, Harry Potter, a little bit of X-Men, but just with the touch of humor, heart, and it's just an overall general fantastic read. And any opportunity I get, I'm going to mention The House in the Cerulean Sea. So if you haven't read it, please do.
Beautiful. So what's the author's name?
T.J. Klune.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's a great pick. And I think, Leslie, you have one more, and then we'll go back to Sun to finish.
I got one more. So I'm going to get into the urban fantasy for this one and go with The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher.
I knew it.
That is one.
that was coming.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite series. It takes a lot of fantastical beings and creatures and, the God and the devil creature. I mean, all of it. It's all there, but it has a twist. It's not something you've heard over and over or redone, which, not that I have a problem. I will read every witch trope there is, every chosen one, every farm boy I'll read them all. But he has a twist that he puts on each one, and just the epic world building that takes place over the entire series.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's just insane. And there is so much of a part of just my last several years spent reading the series that's just attached to it. So when I reread it, I remember what was happening to me at that time, and just there's so many good memories. And I read it with 2 of my best friends in the whole entire world, and just getting to share that with them, and just it just has a whole lot of good memories just all wrapped up. I am disowning Battleground though.
Oh.
That we're gonna pretend like the last book in the series that's out. That one doesn't exist.
Okay. We won't get into details because I've only just finished the 3rd book.
Oh, it's about to just really get there for you. I cannot wait for you to get into Summer Night.
That's what I hear. I hear it really takes off right around book 4. So, and
yeah,
the fans have definitely sold me. I'm going to definitely keep going on this series. So.
Yeah. Well, he was young. He was trying to figure it out, but Grave Peril, he finally started stitching together the books, and like, okay, now we're going to get a bigger picture. So I'm very excited for you because it's about to get good.
Nice. Nice. Very nice. All right. Awesome. I'm looking forward to reading more of the Dresden Files. So we have one more book to mention, or series, and it is going to be Sun's 5th pick.
Okay, so I started with N.K. Jemisin, and I'm going to end with N.K. Jemisin.
Nice.
I'm just fresh out of the read of The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, her recent book. And speaking of urban fantasy, this is an urban fantasy, and I actually I've never read an urban fantasy before, so this was just a wild ride, and this is definitely going to start my road into urban fantasy. I've just written down Dresden Files right now. It was absolutely insane, just mind-blowing. So it expands on the concept of cities having their own soul, and when a city passes a certain stage in centuries, in population, in density, it kind of pops into life and becomes a being of its own. And so then this alive energy channels through human avatars. So that's the concept, and it really expands on the thought, you know that feeling you have when you go to a new city, you try the food, you get seeped into the culture, it has its own soul. And the same with when you return home to your city, you have that sense of home and all the familiar things. So it really expands on that. I absolutely love this concept. It was just a wild, fast-paced ride, so different to Jemisin's Broken Earth. The writing was so different. If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't think it was Jemisin. But it's just, but it's because you're basically from page 1, you're just like dropped into New York City, and it's just go, 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 go. And that's how she writes it. There's no slow burn about it. It's just like you're off. And it just, I imagine that's intentional because it's New York City. So you're just like up there and out and about. And it was just a wild ride. And I think why this is in my top fantasy read, it's just, I haven't read an urban fantasy. And so I was just completely shocked and surprised. And I'm like, where have I been? I need to read more urban fantasy. So yeah, Dresden Files, it's Dresden Files urban fantasy? Or am I thinking... Yep. It is, right? Yes.
And I can send you a list of a few others that are good too.
Yes, please. I was going to say that, post discussion, I would love some recommendations. Neil Gaiman's on there, Dresden Files, but this is just, I'm completely shocked and surprised and so excited to start on this urban fantasy journey.
Cool. Yeah, I have to read that. The City We Became. I actually live not very far from New York City, so it's
amazing.
I love New York.
It's a great.
We got married in Central Park.
Oh, neat! Wow. Huh.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah, he was.
I'm sure. Well, this has been a lot of fun. So thank you to all 3 of you for being here and for telling me. I'm going to just briefly read out everybody's so everyone can get a report on our favorites. So I chose the Malazan Book of the Fallen, Lord of the Rings, Realm of the Elderlings, Broken Earth Trilogy, and the First Lost series. And Sun went with the Broken Earth Trilogy, Kingkiller Chronicles, the Farsia Trilogy, The House in the Cerulean Sea, and The City We Became. And Joanna went with A Song of Ice and Fire, the Malazan Book of the Fallen, the Lord of the Rings, the Stormlight Archive, and the First Lost series. And Leslie went with Sword of Truth, The Faithful and the Fallen, The Realm of the Elderlings, the Stormlight Archive, and the Dresden Files. I feel like we have a pretty darn good representation of fantasy there, don't we?
Amazing. Yep. We've covered it. We've covered it all.
And there are other great series and stories out there too that would have been here if we had been doing top 10, but then this video would have been twice as long. I knew it.
Honorable mention.
I was wondering if somebody was going to bring in the Wheel of Time. Huge respect for that series.
I came close, but
yeah, there are so many we could have brought in here. I could have brought in Ursula Le Guin. That was a tough cut for me. So, but yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much again. This has been a tremendous pleasure to all three of you, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. That was fun.
Yep. All right. Take care now.